I was concerned looking at the forecast that we were going to be facing nil wind conditions on launch today. That didn't happen. Looks like it's actually a banner day for power generation from the wind turbines. And the wind is somewhere around, it's blowing my flagpole over. The wind is currently somewhere around 12 miles an hour, probably gusting about 15 to 18. I'm not even sure if I want to hand kite in this stuff. Might lose my wing into the brush over here, so we may end up calling it off today. Who knows? We'll parawait around here, goof off, crap talk on Facebook, and see what changes.
Is YOLO still a thing? All aboard the struggle bus, y'all. I'm taking off in a full trims out configuration here, and my kiting skills with full trims out leaves something to be desired. This puts the wing in a gust eating configuration that theoretically should still allow a relatively easy launch into a base 8-knot wind. I'm having a booger of a time though keeping the wing from overshooting me, but giving it enough brake where it doesn't fall back. Y'all, this launch is totally unacceptable in my opinion. There is no way that I should have had to bring that wing up 3 times on this launch. That tells me that my kiting skills are getting rusty. Even though it's a configuration that I don't normally put the wing in, that's why we kite, to test out and make sure we're good at all those odd configurations that we might need at some point. While I was waiting for Andy to get in the air, I got some really great practice coring thermals. This was one of the big reasons I purchased the wing that I did. This is actually a hybrid wing built for thermaling. After I bombed out thermaling, there wasn't much else to do but go over to a really short mesa and see if I could get some ridge lift. I also failed at that. Andy and I agreed that this day was just very, very sinky. If you were not in the thermal climbing at a rapid pace, then you were being pushed down. There just wasn't much in between area. Since I left my adapter cable for my radio to my helmet at the house, this is my terrible hand sign trying to tell Andy that there's a huge thermal that's triggering off the dark land in front of us. I prefer to fly on cross countries high above the usable lift to stay out of thermals, but unfortunately this day the usable lift was very high and it was very cold, so I had to come back down because I did not have adequate gear to fly in freezing temperatures. With my weight, I'm a little bit faster than Andy, so for the first time in the flight, I decided I'll just fly out ahead for just a little bit. Turns out, Andy actually had an engine out right behind me.
Uh-oh. There goes my engine. I'm going down. I am out in the middle of nowhere going down.
And so I finally realized that he's not following me, and I turn around and start looking for him. And this is me looking for him right now. I'm looking around for his shadow, and I cannot see it. So when I don't see a shadow, I have to assume that he's not in the air. He's on the ground somewhere. And I'm hoping that his wing is laid out so that I can actually see where he is. And it turns out that there isn't a human soul for probably a 10-mile area around here. And he found the one rancher that's out working cattle and landed about 30 feet from his truck.
He did it! The son of a bitch did it!
My original thought was to put down on the road, but unfortunately the wind changed and I decided to turn into it to slow my descent. And of course, here I am once again dodging cactus. I might need super training, guys. And that right there is my line going right into the cactus. My wing is unscathed, for now anyways. Don't you love electrical shorts? All of a sudden the microphone started working as soon as I landed.
You alright? Oh, your engine decided to die?
And then there was none coming back.
And that's it, huh?
Yep, that was it.
You won't start again?
I haven't tried yet.
We actually spent quite a bit of time doing some troubleshooting and could never get the engine to really run correctly, so we called it, and it just needed some time on the bench. Andy got it back up and running, and it's working well now, but unfortunately he did have to get a ride from the rancher back to the road. As for me, I had to make one of the more challenging launches I've ever made, and what made it challenging was that there was just so much stuff on the ground for the lines to get caught on. I actually failed my first launch, and it was because of that. My line got caught on a little cactus or something. But the second launch went much better. As soon as my wing started to come up, I realized that it wasn't snagging on anything, and I just gave it everything. I probably hit it harder than I've ever hit a launch before. This was a fairly nil-wind launch, and it took me maybe 5 steps to get off the ground because I was just humping it. And the Flux is an efficient beast. In fact, I was so happy that I turned and did a little bit of a celebratory buzz and waved at the nice ranchers. So while we're on the ground talking to the rancher and his wife, he starts to lament to us how very difficult it is to get around this land because there's so many crevasses and rivers and little draws in it that he can't get over to cattle when they get split off from the herd. And he asks if we would be willing to help him round up the cows the next month. I'm not sure that I would want to do that. Who knows? Maybe I'll do it. But I did see as I was flying out 3 of his head that were split off from the herd. The herd was going to eat, and these 3 split off and hightailed it to the other side of the pasture. This is a new section for this herd, so he's having a hard time getting them to learn where the new water trough is and where it is that he's going to be feeding them. These 3 were just knuckleheads. They refused to follow the rest of the cattle to the new trough. They kept going back over to the gate. The only way I could get them to turn away from the gate was to do very low passes, and I just decided that that was a little bit out of my safety margin. So I did a couple of those and then decided to just give up on that. Since these guys knew exactly where the gate was, that's where they kept trying to go when they get scared. And since they were starting to run to a little bit rockier, a little bit nastier ground, I just decided to push them back over to the grass and head on home. The last thing I want to do is buy some cattle because I hurt something and screwed something up while trying to do a good deed. I think if I go out and help this guy, it's going to be more for locating these cattle because they're not really very smart about going where I want them to. They don't always go away from the paramotor. Sometimes they run towards it, like right there. And this is where I realized that they're going to go towards the gate no matter what. And if I keep just frisking them up, I'm afraid that they're just going to run through the gate. Nobody ever said that cattle were the most brilliant animals in the world. So this is where I decide to just call it a day and head out. Goodbye, cattle. The rest of the flight was uneventful. I followed the highway the rest of the way in, I decided that if I did have an engine out, I didn't want to be out in the middle of nowhere like Andy and I were. I don't trust my luck to put me down like right next to the only rancher in half a county. I'm sure I stretched my luck way past its boundaries on my cross country around the Paladuro and Llano Estacado escarpment. Anyways, that's it. Hopefully I can figure out what's going on with my audio on my helmet. Like I said, it was working great. I tested it. Everything looked good, and then it just died. And even my 360 camera was having problems with, I guess, a corrupted SD. I didn't get anything off of that hardly. Yeah, just if there's one thing that's less reliable than paramotors, I would say it has to be audio equipment on a paramotor. It's a real pain in the keister. Anyways, next time, y'all.